This is a coordinated media strategy. This is a disinformation campaign. The documents are real. I'm not saying that the documents are fabrications. They are not. But this cover story that's been manufactured to explain how these documents came to be produced, it just falls apart. It most simply falls apart based upon one document in that mix, which is listed as CIA Operations Center report, top secret. I worked in the CIA Operations Center. I helped prepare those reports. That's an internal CIA document. No one on a U.S. military base anywhere in the world will have access to that kind of document, for starters.
And is this CIA feeding garbage to their friends in the American and British media?
Put it above the CIA. This is elements connected to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, because that's the one place where you bring together CIA, FBI, NSA, DIA, all the key elements. They are the one place in the U.S. government where you can assemble all this material. And the way this thing was so neatly packaged up, until I saw that CIA document, I was inclined to believe that this was simply the act of a whistleblower wanting to flag the problems about the public discrepancy between what Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, and Mark Milley, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the lies they were telling in public, as opposed to the actual reality of what they were being briefed on in secret and top secret briefings every day. This information was leaked with a variety of purposes to prepare the U.S. public for the crash landing that's going to take place with respect to U.S. foreign policy, the crash landing in Ukraine, the crash landing in China. There's no way that some National Guardsman who's doing TDY at Fort Bragg would have access to that. And I'm not basing that upon what happened to me 40 years ago. For 23 years, up until about 3 years ago, I worked in these SCIFs, and I still have friends that do, who are retired CIA and retired NSA and retired FBI, and I talk to them, and they're still seeing the material. None of them have seen anything like this, particularly that CIA Operations Center document or the FISA document. They have complete access to the high side, the top secret side. They have special access programs, SAP clearances. So that's why I say this thing is too tidy a package. This has been wrapped up nice and neatly. This is like an episode of Law and Order.
What's up, guys? Happy Sunday evening. It's Rescue Michigan. We got our weekly live stream back. Hope you guys all had a wonderful Easter. Of course, the Orthodox Easter just happened. So hope you guys all had a great holiday week. And of course, it wasn't entirely a holiday week for those of us watching the Michigan legislature. They had a pretty busy week this week. But first off, how about that clip, huh, folks? That was Larry Johnson, who, as he mentioned, is a former CIA officer. And you can check out all of his comments at sonar21.com. That's his website. Of course, that interview was on Judge Napolitano's show, which you should definitely subscribe to on YouTube, and I'm sure it's on Rumble and other places as well. Daniel, saw your comment here. Absolutely amazing insight. It is, and I've seen a lot of people talk about the different angles of this story, and there are a lot of them. Glenn Greenwald did a very long segment about how insane it is that the media was not, interested in the revelations contained in the leaked documents so much as they were in catching the government's leaker, which is not the role of the mass media, but there you go. But Larry Johnson was the only one that I saw who put it this way. Even Scott Ritter was like, yeah, I mean, all kinds of stupid stuff happens in the military these days. But Larry Johnson makes a pretty compelling point that at least one of those documents is not something that any ordinary person in the military would have access to. And the story as it is doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, does it, folks? I mean, did you all see the interview with the kid that the Washington Post says was the one that got the story and identified the leaker and all the rest of this stuff? It was remarkable. It was bizarre. In fact, I've got the clip here. Let's pull it up. Let me ask you guys before we start to watch the clip, let me know if this sounds like someone who is just reporting what he saw and wasn't coached at all or anything like that. Here's the video. Here we go.
I would not call a GeoWhistleblower in the slightest. I don't think that there was a goal nor some sort of accomplishment that he was looking for in sharing these documents. Of course, there's some anti-government sentiment, but that's not unlike most right-wingers in the modern day and age. OG was not hostile to the U.S. government. However, he had disagreed with several occasions, such as Waco and Ruby Ridge, and thought that the government is overreaching in several aspects. There was no heavy Snowden-like conspiracy here, like some people may believe. People were reading them, and they were not commenting on them. They were just sitting there. He is not a Russian operative. He is not a Ukrainian operative. I'll go as far to say he's not even on the east side of the world. Any claims that he is a Russian operative or pro-Russian is categorically false. He is not interested in helping any foreign agencies with their attack on the U.S. or other countries. He was a young, charismatic man who loved nature, God, who loved shooting guns and racing cars. It would appear as if he sort of grew angry with the fact that only one or two people were paying attention to these documents that he was pouring his heart out into. And as a sign of just anger, he just decided to post the full documents. He was a very smart man. There's no way in any world that he would not know that he knew that these were illegal.
That sounded totally not rehearsed, right, ladies and gentlemen? He was a right-winger. He loved God. He loved guns. He loved racing. Jesus Christ. Yeah, he absolutely was not a foreign agent. He absolutely was not interested in telling, in doing anything that might benefit a foreign country. He was just a deranged right-winger from America's heartland. I mean, give me a break. It just goes to show that the mass media take the American people for complete and utter morons. I mean, good God. So that's the story you're expected to believe, folks. Yeah, just a 21-year-old right-winger had top secret clearance, and he was, obtaining multiple top secret reports from a whole bunch of different military branches, and just decided to post them on the internet, and because he was really interested in winning the affections over of 19-year-olds in their mom's basements, and one of those 19-year-olds decided to come forward. Sure. I mean, who knows? Maybe there was an accomplice or whatever. Obviously, we're not going to ever find out the real story. But, there was a guy arrested for espionage, so I'm sure he will have his day in court. The public will be allowed to see the entire court case play out, right, folks? I'd love for the government to prove me wrong on that claim. Sure. But I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, the biggest thing, of course, is what these documents actually mean, which is that some of us who were saying that Russia is winning the war and Ukraine is losing were correct. And the government telling you, oh yeah, Ukraine's going to win any day now. Ukraine's going to turn the tide of battle, and they're going to defeat Russia on the battlefield. We're a bunch of pathetic liars. So I hope you guys just, if you haven't already made up your mind about who is a reliable source of news and analysis, whether it's the people who are lying about everything else in the world, or if it's the people who are criticizing the regime, who might be on the right track here. Dwayne Gritter says, hello, everyone. Had to depart another live with Justin Barkley. You should feel privileged. Well, thank you, Dwayne. I am privileged. Sorry, it's just me again tonight, folks. We couldn't get a guest on tonight. I can't wait to have Patty on again, or Shane, or Amber, or any of our other co-hosts, but it's just me for tonight. But we do have some stuff to talk about. There has been some more developments in the state legislature, some new bills that went in this week, so we'll talk about those. What else do I have on my little list of things I want to run down here? Joe Biden failing again this week, this time in Ireland. Did you guys see that there was a story in the Babylon Bee, and it was something like, drunks in Ireland think that Joe Biden's speech sounded totally intelligible. So there you go. And of course, again, getting back to these leaks, the big revelation is something that, all of us knew all along, which is the government spies on all of our allies. Gee, would never have suspected that, not after Obama was caught spying on Angela Merkel. I'm sure the whole rest of the world really feels happy to know that the United States treats their allies that way, but now it's official. They can all see it. And of course, there also were serious concerns about the leaks. Scott Ritter was making this point, which is that there actually was operational security issues that were revealed that are going to be very problematic. But yeah, that's the way that goes, I suppose. That's what happens when you don't handle classified information properly. So I'm not going to personally link to the documents, but I think Glenn Greenwald did in his Rumble episode this week. One of them, he has a link to where you can get all the documents and see them for yourself if you'd like to do that. But that's on you guys. I'm not going to go into that any more than necessary. I mean, those are the biggest things. It's just that, yeah, we've been lying all along about how great the war is going, and also, by the way, we spy on all of our allies. That's not going to cause any problems with our foreign relations anywhere. Not like we have any problems with our relations in the Middle East, anything like that going on. So yeah, that was a big story this week. And then of course we didn't have a show last Sunday because it was Easter, but I did do a show on Wednesday where we went over, we watched all of Trump's interview that was on Tucker earlier this week. The big takeaway was that Trump is going hard on foreign policy and on denuclearization. And yeah, it's, I mean, it was, to my mind, a game-changing interview for Trump. That Trump is going to litigate some of the most important issues in the upcoming race. And that's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. George says, we spy, they spy. That's 100% normal / expected in all honesty. Well, maybe not. That's what we do and what we expect everybody else to do to us. But that may be projection. I don't know that goes on between Russia and China or Russia and India or, any nation that doesn't have a massive national security apparatus. Spying on their allies would probably be a bad thing for them to do. So I'm sure it's something that's normal from our perspective because that's the way we treat our allies. We blow up their critical infrastructure, and if they don't like it, too bad. But, the world is starting to react to this stuff. And, we're in less and less of a position where we can just tell them to pound sand if they don't like it. Now they're starting to walk away from the dollar. They're starting to look at China as a peacemaker. I mean, these are very rapidly changing times, and this is going to have real problems in the long term. What else happened? Oh, I don't think I mentioned this on the show, but I did want to mention, if you guys hadn't heard this, that RFK Jr. is running for president on the Democrat ticket, which in a way is kind of awesome because, he is, after all, a Kennedy. He's also one of the leading advocates for health freedom and against vaccine mandates and all the rest of that. So potentially very interesting development in the Democrat race. But that being said, there's, I think, two problems. One is, don't underestimate the Democrat machinery. They're not going to have a fair primary. Forget about that. And secondly, he's not going to be a Bernie Sanders type force because he has a severe speech impediment. And as brilliant as RFK Jr.'s book was on the real Anthony Fauci, and as brilliant as all of his legal work is with children's health defense, if you've ever seen a clip of him speaking, you understand he's not going to go well for him on the debate stage. It's not going to be like a Bernie Sanders who, he may have been totally phony, but Bernie was able to convey that anger at the Democrat establishment and yada, yada, yada that people can buy. But RFK Jr., unfortunately, I mean, it's a sad reality of politics that when the guy speaks, this is that's what he sounds like. And that's just, it's not going to play well with the young people. So too bad about that. But who knows? I mean, maybe he will draw some votes and cause some doubt among Democrat voters, but I suspect he won't even fare as well as Tulsi Gabbard did in 2016. Or 2020, was it 2020 when she ran? I think it was. So that's the way that goes. John Americ says on YouTube, says it's what you do when you want to dominate and rule the world. Yeah, but the world doesn't necessarily want to be dominated. And as I say, I don't think they're going to have, we're an empire in decline right now, folks. And Exhibit A is everything the Biden regime is screwing up. And Exhibit B is everything that Democrats are screwing up at all the state levels. And I guess that's a segue to some of the things to talk about this week. The big news, sadly, is that the Democrats did pass the red flag law in the House. And I think there's still going to be some back and forth between the Senate before the bills all get into the governor's desk, because there were several of them. And I think the only one that's now passed in both chambers was only one of them. So there's still a few more. But a couple of things can still happen, because there will still have to be some more votes on the red flag bills. First thing is, this is ammunition political ammunition to be used against all the incumbent Democrats and all the vulnerable seats, because every single one of them had to vote for it, and every single one of them did. From Betsy Kofia in Traverse City to Jen Hill in Marquette, which I think there's a lot of gun owners in that part of Michigan, to Jamie Churches in Macomb County, and Regina Miller in my county, as well as Monroe and a couple other counties. They're all now on record on the most radical piece of anti-Second Amendment, anti-Constitution legislation in the country, which, in fact, I think I talked about this on Wednesday, was actually recently struck down by a couple of courts in New York for violating the Second Amendment, and some interesting decisions there. Now, in New York, although they call their lower level courts in New York Supreme Courts, and the actual Supreme Court is the Court of Appeals. So I don't know why it works that way, but that's the way it is. So we'll see how it goes on appeal. But I am hopeful that this is the kind of case the U.S. Supreme Court might take up on guns, because it is the most radical anti-Second Amendment legislation that's out there right now, is that you can have your Second Amendment rights stripped away without any due process at all. And again, this is not something the media is going to ever talk about. This is kind of up to every one of you folks when you go out and knock on doors and talk to people, that this is what the Democrats do. So if you haven't already seen, and I will show you at rescuemichigan.com, I have gotten all caught up for the week on all of the bills that they've introduced in the House and Senate. So let me show you now. Let me pull it up on the screen here. If we go to Rescue Michigan, there's the good old Operation Watchdog. Here, let me make this bigger. Operation Watchdog, and click the link. And now all of the votes are updated. Yep, Jamie mentions Jamie Churches. Remember, she's a Dem. She only won by 660 votes. Yeah, she's in a tough seat. That is true. I have not yet updated the scorecard. I mean, the red flag bill will be key voted for the House, but it's not going to make any difference in the scores because the Democrats all voted for it and the Republicans all voted against it. So all it's going to do is just push some of the Republican scores higher, and then all the Democrat scores will stay the same, except for Dylan Wagela's, because he voted differently from this caucus on one single vote. But other than that, they're all pretty much the same. But we do have some new bills this week, and I'll show you. These were just introduced in the House and the Senate this week. And this is another one, which I tell you folks, is not going to be popular among voters. And that's these bills to issue, it's misspelled. I got to fix that. Issue driver licenses and ID cards to illegal aliens. And a lot of the Democrats, good for us, put their name on the bills as people that co-sponsored it, or as they are reported in the Journal, introduced. They all introduced these bills. So those are the Senate bills, 265 to 267, and you can find them in the House as well. I think they're on this page. Let's see if I'm right. We can look at some other bills that they introduced this past week. Here's a great one. Spend more of your state tax dollars matching local tax millages. We've got bills to create HOV lanes, because everybody loves to have traffic discrimination on their roads. They put that in. Lots and lots and lots of bills for big labor in the House, including this one here. Allow teachers unions to bargain over things like merit pay standards, performance evaluation standards, layoff, recall, hiring. These are all things to basically make it so that you can't fire a bad teacher. And they put that in too, so parents can love that. We'll see where those go. You know, it's not a whole lot of co-sponsors on these, but if they're going to get anywhere, they're going to get a roll call vote sooner or later. And of course, in the meantime, some of the more wackier Democrats you can go after on these. Of course, the ones from Ann Arbor, Carrie Rangens and Felicia Braybeck are on there. But there you go. So all these bills are for big labor. And then, you got another one to kick the gun owners right here. If you're a CPL holder, you know when you're pulled over by a police officer, you must immediately tell them that you are carrying. This bill would require you to do the same for firefighters and EMTs. We've got another goofball bill sponsored by almost all the Democrats to allow local governments to impose plastic bag bans. This was something that the Republicans put in as a preemption when it became a fad in left-wing states to ban plastic bags. And there's an interesting philosophical / messaging argument about this. The Democrats were like, hey, we thought Republicans were for local control. And that's not a position I have ever taken. I think I oppose tyranny at every level, whether it's the local government doing it or the state government or the federal government doing it. So in my view, the state prohibiting a local government from doing something that's completely outside of what local government should be doing is completely proper. And besides that, I mean, I don't know how much it would affect this particular bill because it's going to apply to grocery stores and they're all going to know about it. But it's really problematic when you have a whole patchwork of different laws in every different jurisdiction that nobody can be expected to keep on top of. So there's a lot of reasons why a whole class of different policies should just be completely off limits to local governments, and this was just one of them. But the Democrats are coming after your plastic bags, folks. So there it is, and you can see right there the list of all the Democrats that co-sponsored that one. Whole bunch of things to try to coerce people into organ donation. Got some Republican bills allowing health departments to distribute opioid antagonists. Okie dokie. Create a corporate tax credit for R&D. To me, that's market tampering. I don't think that's a good policy at all, but there you go. Some various reporting requirements. Allow more casinos. Gee, I wonder who's supporting that bill. You got that one there. Looks like someone in the Republican caucus finally got a good idea. Here's a good bill to say that public employee retirement funds have to consider solely whether or not this investment's going to make money. In other words, not allowing the ESG consideration, which stands for environmental, social, and governmental interests. In other words, public interests ahead of the money-making interests that these investments are supposed to have. It should be a basic duty of a retirement fund to be trying to make as much money for the retirees as possible. And of course, they don't do that. So that was a bill that the Republicans put in, and it got sent to the House Government Operations Committee, which those of you who have been up on Operation Watchdog know that's basically the trash can committee. That's the Republicans used to use that the same way when they were in the majority. It's where you send bills to die, usually. So there's that. What else do we have here? A few interesting ones. Allowing students to skip school for a given number of mental health days. Curtis says, sorry, I'm late joining in. That's okay. Curtis, you can always watch the video later on. I watch a lot of streams and I often don't watch them live because I like to be able to pause them whenever I want to get up for something. So thank you guys all for tuning in and joining us in the chat, those of you watching live. Where was I? What else do we got here? More stuff for big labor. Here's an interesting bill. Spend taxpayer money for ads to promote Dana Nestle's payroll fraud division. So there you go. Let's see here. Okay, it wasn't on this page. Must be on the next page, so we'll go there. These were all introduced this week, folks. The Democrats were busy. A lot of big labor bills. And let's see, what else do we have here? Here we go. Here's the Democrat bills, and again, a lot of co-sponsors on each of these. Although as I look them over, you see the ones that are in tough districts passed on co-sponsoring these. So this may be one that they're going to save for the lame duck session, perhaps. But we'll see. We'll see where they go in the committees. We'll keep an eye on these for sure. These are overwhelmingly unpopular bills. Even Democrat voters aren't huge fans of these. There was a proposal in Oregon in 2014, Proposal 88, to give driver licenses to illegal aliens, and it went down in flames. Or no, I'm sorry, it was to prohibit driver licenses for illegal aliens, and it passed overwhelmingly is the correct statement of how that vote went. But that was in Oregon. And that proposal was more popular than all the Democrats on the ticket, any of the other proposals, and even marijuana. Oregon voters were not crazy about giving driver licenses to illegal immigrants. So There you go. Lots of Democrats signed onto this. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 30 of them. 30 of them out of 56. So most of them signed on to that. Dwayne Gritter says, elections have consequences. We are seeing it big time. Yep. The Democrats are going as extreme as you can possibly imagine. Here's a funny bill. Allow campaign contributions to be spent on childcare. Look at that. What else do we have here? I mean, those are the most interesting ones right there. And what I encourage everybody to do, the weather has been absolutely gorgeous out. It's time, folks, to start knocking on doors. What you can do is just click on any of these people. And these are now updated. All of the bills that they've co-sponsored are now all in here. You can take as many of them as you want to fit onto a piece of paper. Be like, look, these are the bills that Carol Glanville has introduced. Does this sound like Grand Rapids priorities to you folks? And, pick the most divisive, the most obnoxious of these. Like, these are the things that Carol Glanville cares about. She introduced all these bills. She put her name on each and every one of these. Isn't that wild? And of course, all the roll calls are all here too. So if you scroll down, these are the roll calls for this week. Not a whole lot this week, honestly. The biggest ones were these are the red flag law bills. So those are all in there. I thought I just saw a typo. Now I can't find it. Oh well, I'll try to catch it. So there you go, folks. The dossiers are up to date. And this is what you got to do, because the mass media isn't doing it for you. Mark asks, are we doing any more classes? I still haven't heard back on booking the one in Jackson. A few weeks ago, when we had one that was scheduled in Troy, we ended up having we had a really bad snow problem. So I ended up doing it online. I've just sent out refunds to everyone that couldn't make the online class, and even the ones that did to compensate for the difference. I'm also looking to schedule one in the UP in the summertime. So I will make an announcement whenever those are scheduled. Otherwise, if you can promise you'll get me 20 people to come, I'll schedule one wherever you'd like me to be, and we'll do it there. Jay says, I wish Republicans would be this united in pursuing the conservative agenda when they have the majority. Yeah, we have a real problem with our side in general. And it amazes me that Republicans would let someone like Matt Hall be their leader. But there you go. And unfortunately, it's tough. You would have to find somebody who could, individually get members of the caucus to start saying, if we could get to a critical mass of members to have a change in leadership, then let's go for it. But it's very, very hard to organize, because what they end up doing is all these lobbyists rally behind the speaker and they only give their money to the speaker. And now the speaker controls the purse strings, or in this case, the minority leader. And that's going to be a real problem, because if they ever do get the majority, Matt Hall is atrocious and things are going to go right back to the way they were. There's going to be nothing about, let's repeal everything Democrats just passed when we get back to governor's mansion. Nothing like that. And if we do take the majority back in 2024, it'll be 2 years of, you'll have a check on the most extreme Democrat bills, but when they get together and pass things in a bipartisan manner, it's going to be all spending and special interests. And that's just the way that's going to go. So very, very frustrating. But it also comes down to grassroots leadership, folks. And I will beat this drum again and again and again. The number one thing that we can do about this is precinct canvassing. So if you haven't already seen this, I will show you. We have these tools available for everybody in Michigan. If you want to go to rescuemichigan.com and sign up, and you can acquire your precinct voter file. The new files, by the way, now have the 2022 voter data, who voted in the 2022 primary and general elections. And you can get detailed lists of all of the voters in your precinct. You can get them in different formats. You can get them as a complete spreadsheet. You can get them in filters down to primary voters, very likely Republicans with activists and donors. If you want to build a precinct organization, click on that link. It'll give you information. You can get them. And again, we've got so much data. I mean, everything from phone numbers to party affiliation to election history. And we have this available for every single precinct in the state. So if you are looking to build an organization, and that's going to be absolutely key, is people getting together with their neighbors. You know, there's been a lot of, and one thing we haven't talked about very often on the show in a while is election integrity stuff. And a lot of other groups are still doing things. I've heard all these new proposals, and we've got this angle, and we've got that angle, and there's all this other stuff. We're not going to be able to change the law in this cycle, folks. I mean, that's just the reality. So some people have been talking about really going out and getting voters to start voting early, and that's absolutely going to be necessary, is a get out the vote strategy. And that involves having multiple people in every precinct so that you have, you know, a team of people that can run the absentee chase. Because we're going to have not just one election day anymore, folks. We have not just 5 weeks of absentee voting, but we also have 9 days of in-person voting. So that's going to mean identifying voters and starting to nag likely Republican voters. Did you vote yet? Did you vote yet? When are you going to vote? Are you going to vote today? Are you going to vote tomorrow? We need you to vote. And that can be a game changer. If you have an organized precinct where you can tell people who the candidates are for school board, who the candidates are for judge that they should vote for, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's no other way to do this than at the precinct level. And that's the only way we're going to have a different election in 2024 than we had in 2020 and in 2022, is to have methodical precinct organizations. So that is what we need to do. That's what I'm looking to do in my county and in my precinct. And I hope all of you are doing the same. I did hear, by the way, folks, let me know in the chat if any of you were in, there was a Republican Party meeting the other day. And I've heard some interesting stories about things that were said. I can't confirm them, so I won't repeat them. I have heard that Rescue Michigan came up. I've heard some people said some good things about us, and some people said some not so good things about us. So let me know if you were there. I heard that the people who were invited included both state committee members and county chairs, but the county chairs who were invited to the meeting were then told they weren't allowed to speak and they weren't really welcome there. So let me know if you heard that same story. But I did hear that the state party is planning some kind of precinct operation. So what that's going to look like, I don't know. And I wouldn't rely on it no matter what. I would encourage all of you folks, don't rely on anybody else. You know, you guys have the tools, if you get those voter files, to build your own precinct organizations. And you can't do it for the whole state, but you can do it and do it well in your own county. And Dan Lawless says it was an interesting meeting. And he says there is some sort of precinct plan coming. Well, I hope so. You know, I want the GOP to succeed. I don't have all that high hopes. And of course, they haven't been very successful in any of those things in the past. So any change would be welcome. Barry says some ugly shenanigans on the Friday night before the state committee meeting. Someone told me a fight almost broke out. If anyone can confirm that, and if so, what it was about, I would love to know. But I wasn't there, so I don't know. But very, very interesting. But like as I say, folks, I would not rely on state party. I wouldn't rely on your local party, frankly. All we can do is the best that we can do in our own precincts. And you need to decide what's the most important thing that you can do in your precinct. There may or may not be a state house seat in play next year, but there may be a school board race. There may be judicial races, prosecutor races. There may be just an opportunity for you to do the best you can for the presidential race. And who knows who the candidate for U.S. Senate might be. I don't think we know yet. Jan says there was a physical altercation involving a guest from the Macomb County delegation. Amazing. Wonder what that was all about. For those who don't know, the Macomb County delegation is an absolute disaster. Biggest takeaway was what a disaster the transition to Christina was. The previous administration gave her no help at all. I'm sure they didn't. And frankly, I don't necessarily blame them. After all the things that they did to Ron Weiser in the past administration, they repaid his generosity in millions of dollars with false accusations and slander and humiliation. So, but that was what the state delegates chose to do. Yeah, Wendy Jo Waters says disaster. Well, it is what it is. I think in the long run, it's going to be a good thing for the party because two things are going to happen. One is that the county parties are going to realize that there is nobody that's going to help them out, that they have to run their own county organizations, and they're going to be building that infrastructure for the next couple of years. They're going to be building their own donor base. They're going to be building their own grassroots program. They're going to have no expectation of getting anything from the state party. And that's a good thing. And so at some point in the future, when the state party becomes professional again, they're going to look back at all the mistakes they made that led to things getting to the state that they're in now. And they're going to be able to, as Joe Biden would say, build back better. So I think in the long run, it's going to be a good thing. But as for right now, yeah, it's a big fat mess, and it is what it is. And I think also, by the way, folks, this is also probably a big reason why the Democrats are getting away with all these radical bills, is they think there's not going to be any penalty for them. They think they're going to get away with it, and they're going to easily keep their majority in the next election. Our job's to prove them wrong. Dan says, it will be okay. There was a lot of good people in that room. And he says, I'm right. Thank you. A focus on the county parties that's happening is a good thing. Thank you for that, Dan. Yeah, I mean, it's a mix, and that's the way it often goes. You've got all kinds of different things happening in different county parties, and some will be more successful than others. So it is what it is. I have a dry throat right now. I don't know how much that coffee will help, but we'll see. Oh, one more thing I should mention. Speaking of that red flag law, I've heard that there were some Democrats that really didn't want to vote for that. And part of their concern was that it might be used against Democrats. God forbid. So let me just be the first to encourage all of you. The day this bill is signed into law, start looking at Democrat social media. Start getting on, what's that Democrat platform? There's a Democrat Twitter now. I forget what it's called, but it's something stupid. Where they probably don't think anybody's watching, and start copying and pasting posts. Start taking names. Anything that they do that's even suggestive of violence. And there'll be plenty of it. It's everywhere to be found because Democrats are fundamentally violent people. We should start reporting them. And we should be talking about doing that. We should be encouraging people to do that. Anytime Democrats start talking about violence, flag it. I'm serious. Because that's what they're intending to do to us. Mark says, most of my coworkers are Democrats and gun owners. Well, I hope they don't say anything untoward about Donald Trump. It would be a real shame if someone elicited them to talk about their real feelings about Donald Trump and they say something violent, because that's grounds to have their Second Amendment rights stripped right away from them, folks. And hey, you know what? Remember, that's what they want to do to us. You guys probably all know this story because I've told it several times before. I've interviewed him before, but Lucas Gerhard, that conservative student at LSSU, who had to spend the better part of 3 years in some form of custody, including 83 days in jail, simply for making a joke about his AR-15 that he lawfully acquired and never threatened anybody with. That's what they want to do to you, to all of us. So I, for one, would have absolutely no hesitation to say, hey, these people are an extreme risk by their own standards. You want to talk about political violence? They may not be safe. There's kind of a big pattern of Democrats committing extreme acts of political violence. Remember, they burned down a few cities a couple of years ago, stormed a state capitol the other day in Tennessee. Dwayne Gritter says red flag is a bonanza for attorneys and a nightmare for police. Yeah, well, this is true, but you know what? The police have not done themselves any favors. So it is what it is. And yeah, it's a bonanza for attorneys. That's unfortunately the way it goes. But the Democrats want it to be a bonanza for themselves. They're salivating at the opportunity to lock up their political opposition. So I frankly have seen more than enough tweets. You can check out Andy No's Twitter feed if you want to see a cavalcade of them, of Democrats that should absolutely not have their gun rights if their own standards were to be applied on us. And I know you guys are saying the golden rule and yada, yada, yada. The reality is some of them really are dangerous. Like the one that shot up that Christian school a couple weeks ago. And that was their pretext for passing this bill, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that. So with that, I think that's about all I think I have to cover for this week, folks. Let me see if there's anything I missed. Nope, I think that was about it. Well, let me just, I almost forgot. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to hit that like button, share the videos, subscribe to the stream so you never miss one. And let me also suggest once again that if you haven't already done so, visit rescuemichigan.com, get your precinct voter file. If you got your file last year, I don't think I can get a free update for you with the updated voter data, but you can get another one. If you want to do that, just click on the, somewhere here, there's a contact button under the info tab. You can use the contact form to send a request in and we can make it happen. We can get you the updated voter file. And I can get them in bulk too. I've supplied whole counties at a time with their voter data. And I just want the data to get out. And it's a lot more affordable when you buy them in bulk. So consider doing that if you're interested in building a county organization. The bigger the files, the more files I'm getting, the cheaper they are per precinct. And the prices go down pretty quickly when you're buying in bulk. So you can use that same contact form and let me know. And I am going to probably try to make a push for people to get their files this week because, folks, it is time. The weather's gorgeous. Time to start knocking on doors. Time to start building the narrative about the extremism of the Democrats and what they're doing now that they've taken over the state government, because they are moving at breakneck pace. Every week it's something new, it's something crazy, and something that voters need to know about. So I think that's about all I've got for everybody this week. Let's see, anything else in the chat that I missed? I don't see any chats in Rumble this week. I hope I'm not missing things. Apparently I've got more people watching on Rumble than the other channels, but hey, it's the medium for you. Facebook people are just more talky. John's on YouTube says, look at what prominent Dems said about throwing people in jail if they didn't get the vax. That is violent speech. Yeah, I'd say so. Jen Lawless says, state party didn't have a computer or phone or single email address provided from the previous MIGOP. They literally started from scratch, except for the debt left from them. Things are moving and will be ramping up. Well, good. I hope so. I've said this before, folks. I hope Christina succeeds. I really do. And I think that's all for this week, folks. So thanks for joining us. I'll try to make sure we get a guest on for next week, and hopefully we'll have some topics to go over besides just the usual weekly grind. Perhaps some new grassroots leadership tools will be coming, but I like to not foreshadow too much. I'd rather just let you know when things are out and available. Mark says the MIGOP pages are up. Oh, well, let's check them out, shall we? Why not? Let's see what we got here. MIGOP.org. Oh, that's very different. Michigan is the future of America and the engine of her revival. Cool. We've got a page for the Mackinac Conference. Party of the Constitution. Message from the chairwoman. Tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire, says Gustav Mahler. I don't know who that is. Okay, cool. Speakers and program. Who are the speakers and program? So I announced the speakers for this year's conference next month. Okay, interesting. We'll have to see who they are. So there you go. Very nice looking. About. We got an about page. Got that. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, very good. Cool. Mackinac is on. I might have to get my tickets soon then. The Mackinac conference is always interesting. I'll say that much. All right, guys, that's all for tonight. Thanks, as always, for all you do for Liberty. Possible show during the week, but no promises. And certainly we'll be back next Sunday for another weekly update. Thanks, as always, for all you guys do for Liberty. Until then,